as we've talked about strategies to address problems, particularly around classroom incivilities and academic integrity, it's time for us to acknowledge how generative AI has changed our teaching endeavors. So by the end of this video, you'll be able to define what generative AI is and how it's relevant to higher education. We will discuss how students and instructors are using generative AI and identify potential academic integrity concerns with this use. Finally, you're going to suggest strategies to address the use of Gen AI in the classroom. So I call it Gen AI, which is short for generative AI. And I asked Google to give me a definition of what generative AI is. And you'll see here, it's actually from the Google Gemini AI overview. So it used AI to tell me what AI is. And you can see that if you're unfamiliar, it's artificial intelligence that can use to create new content. And it's using models with complex algorithms to identify patterns in large data sets and then generate new outputs. And this is typically in response to a user's prompt. So there are a couple examples here, and I don't have Gemini listed here, but you could easily add that to the list. So there are other types of AI, so I just wanted to clarify that I'm speaking about where you would go into a program online and add a prompt and it gives you back something new. So why are we talking about this in a college teaching class? Well, there has been a dramatic adoption among students. This study in 2024 found that 86% of university students were using AI regularly in their studies. And that was in a global study. That it's here and students are using it. There's also these increasing expectations in workforce and industry in how AI is going to change what work looks like. And it has become increasingly common in healthcare, insurance, and banking industries. You can see I have an article here linked about AI in the workplace from IBM. So they pointed out that things like chatbots, automated data entry, and translating materials are becoming increasingly done with AI. So what students' careers look like could be different based upon their use and integration of AI. So I'm curious how you or students you know are using generative AI, and you can sit and consider your own uses. I'm going to go ahead and go forward. A study done that compared students, 1,000 undergraduate students in 23 and then 24, found that these are the key reasons they're using generative AI. So generating text, enhancing and editing writing, summarizing materials, translation, generating audio or video, and there's some other areas down in here. So there's a number of very educationally supportive techniques or tools that they're using that have AI, or they're using AI to help achieve these goals. So we need to also acknowledge the role that AI could play for instructors. So I wonder how you might be able to use AI, or perhaps you've been using AI to help teach. One example, I use it to help summarize the module overviews for Canvas. So I tell ChatGPT what are the main topics, what are we doing that week, and then I ask it to summarize it for me. And I often have to refine it, but it's taking away that task and allows me time to do other things. So there are other uses that instructors have noted, and I want to mention this because it's a tool that if you want students to use it, or if you think students are using it in your courses, you should try using it so you know what the limitations are, what the capabilities are, and also maybe how to detect it. So these are all strategies or approaches that you could use as an instructor. It's been really helpful for me to create rubrics, just thinking about the categories and the qualifiers that I would include. I've used it to develop situations or scenarios for workshops that I've done, maybe outside of my classroom teaching. I've used it actually to complete other tasks in my role, such as drafting recommendation letters. So I would never put a resume into it, but I would certainly say I have a student who has done these things, they're frequently in class, they contribute well, draft a letter, and then I refine it. But if you're a good teacher, you're going to be writing a lot of recommendation letters. The other is I've needed it to provide justification for curriculum changes or new courses. I've heard of people using it to summarize student course feedback. I've used it to summarize peer teaching feedback and pull out the key points. So there are some possible applications for generative AI for both teaching and learning. This link is on Canvas, and this university did an analysis of many studies, surveys of students or faculty on their AI use. And so I have just a table here. They have many other citations within the full link if you want to explore it. The key thing is that students are using AI more than faculty, but both have a need for more training, and both have some optimism and concern. So when we pull this back to the academic integrity conversation, Matt Miller in this book, again, I have this linked online, talks about this the plagiarism continuum, where depending on what you're going to allow or permit students to do with AI in your class, it's changing how we would recognize plagiarism and cheating. So you can see here that at the top end, this, a student plugged the prompt into AI, copied response, and submitted it to the teacher. Would you consider that plagiarism or cheating? And then, down here we have student consulted AI or Internet for Ideas, then wrote and submitted the paper. So one approach you could take here is to draw a line and say, from here up is unacceptable and from here down is okay. But helping students really consider how generative AI use might lead to concerns regarding academic integrity will be crucial as these tools become more widely accepted and used in our classes. So to, start somewhere, you need to consider how your syllabus will address AI use. And hopefully, first of all, it does. It acknowledges that AI use is possible, and here's what your policy is on that. So let's talk a little bit about how we could address AI use in the classroom. The first is in how you set up the policy and prepare students for that experience. So you need to establish what is and is not allowed with AI and communicate those expectations verbally as well as in the syllabus. So you might need to show them perhaps some examples of acceptable use if you allow that. And then update your academic integrity policies. Since AI came on the scene, my academic integrity policy regarding AI has changed every semester, just to try to reflect common needs and best practices. One of the approaches that's been used is this traffic light system, where you help students understand what is absolutely not used for AI, like what assignments don't allow AI, where you could potentially use AI with certain tools or permission, and then where AI use is permitted with the attribution. So there are different levels, and each faculty member, each educator could decide to use a different approach. So that's why it's additionally important to explain this to students so they know what you want. Texas Tech has a website, and again, I'll have this linked on Canvas, that has some sample AI use statements about where they can or can't use AI. There are some other approaches that you need to take considering AI use. One is in how you're going to assess, guiding students in their AI use and then assessing how they've used it. So you want them perhaps to focus more on the process, so they might need to submit drafts, outlines, or evidence to demonstrate that they're working. Incorporating reflection I have found to be really insightful. So have students reflect on what they're learning and connect it to the material in an authentic way, which AI typically cannot do. You might need them to verify where they got the information. If it's AI permitted, then they need to cite that. And if not, then where did they find what they're using in the document or resource? And then that usually requires you to teach them how to cite it. That is, if that's an expectation, don't assume they know how to do that. The next point is to, consider how you're going to verify that it's their work and then evaluate it. So one of the best things you can do, there's no way to 100% AI proof an assignment, but you can use a variety of assignments. So they could do written work, they could do presentations, in-class activities, discussions, proctored exams. All of those things are going to make using AI less attractive because they can't rely on it all the time. You could compare their work to previous submissions. If you have a small enough class, you'll notice some red flags. Visit with students if you have concerns. Be cautious with AI detection software. Don't rely on it 100% because it has been found to say everything is AI, even original work that's been submitted. And then at the end of the day, if you can foster a supportive environment, that will reduce the incentive to cheat. If you can implement these other best practices we've discussed this semester, hopefully they'll recognize that it isn't worth it to question their academic integrity and use AI when it's not allowed. So we're going to stop here, and I'm going to start up the next video with a few more pieces of advice and then your final discussion post for the week.